Now introducing the Minor Wisdom Trio!
Minor Wisdom!
Well, I finally got Yvonne Phillips Dupree on. So excited to have her on because I've been trying for a long time, and no fault of hers, but we just haven't had schedules that matched up, and I've seen her quite a few times, but I'm not like just going to walk up to somebody and say, hey, sit with me for 45 minutes and record, because you're not really prepared. So I was really grateful. I very much look up to Yvonne in the way that she's just an amazing legend in the state of Texas, and she probably doesn't want to call herself a legend, but it is what it is. Call a spade, but Yvonne is amazing, and I had a great time talking to her. This is a phone call, so it sounds a little different, but it's actually in my opinion, I typically stress when I talk to people on Zoom because I'm afraid my crappy Xfinity is just going to fall out of the air and I won't be able to finish the conversation. But on the phone, don't really feel, as long as we're not moving around, it's actually more reliable. So I had a great chat with her. Again, very grateful that she made time for me. Hey, make sure you maybe think about purchasing a shirt, please. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. Just did Junior Thespian Festival at Travis High School, my old stomping grounds. That's just kind of coincidence, since the head of all juniors is the person that took my position when I left Travis. It kind of makes sense. But Alexis Getty does a wonderful job. A lot of the board was there because a lot of the board is local from Houston. It's kind of half and half. There are, that's not necessarily true. It's not legit half and half, but a lot of people from the Dallas area, a lot of people from the Houston area, and we've got some people sprinkled in between. Austin, San Antonio, Corpus, that kind of stuff. So it was really fun to do Junior Fest. I haven't really done it in a while. I don't think it's been quite some time, and I judged quite a few things: lip sync, solo and duet musical, which I shouldn't be judging. I judged some of the scenic and posters and mask designs, which are all kind of cool. It's fun, it's just making sure that you're making some kids happy. And what's funny is, in the room that I was in for one of the judging, I don't remember which one it was, if it was improv or whatever it was, I thought I was being really harsh on the kids, and turns out I wasn't the one. I was actually the good cop in that room. So I was happy to do it. It was a lot of fun. And again, Alexis does a really good job running things and has her what together when it comes to that stuff. So good on her, good on the team. Jacob, all those people, helping out, doing that kind of thing. Toby. That's really about it. Come to T-Tech. Register for T-Tech, please. We've put together, we're going to as I record this, or as you listen to this, or if you're listening on Sunday, maybe while you're listening, we're actually finalizing the workshop schedule, and it's very good. It's less workshops this year, less slots, so that we can drive the traffic to the rooms, because I think last year we had some issues just having rooms filled with people. And so this year we've taken some of those workshops away so that people it's not thinning out. So, but we've got quite a few new faces, quite few new we've got some new faces coming to T-Tech this year, and some returning faces, but not a lot. So we like to vary up the pot a little bit, get some new spices in the stew, if you know what I'm saying, in the T-Tech stew. So register. I know it's tough. I get it. We all get it. But it's something that's possible. TXCTA, or TETA at the time, used to be in January, and you had 1,000 teachers. So not that we want T-Tech to be 1,000 teachers. It's more intimate, but it can, we can get numbers, and we're doing all right. But would love to see you there. Thanks for supporting the podcast. I'm going to be done talking. You guys enjoy this amazing chat. So grateful. Again, I know I've said it already. to have Yvonne on. Oh, real quick, I do want to tell you about how I'm an idiot. So Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen are sisters. Didn't know that. Both, I knew they were both from Houston, but Yvonne talks about that. I did not know that they were related. I'm an idiot. Shame on me. I should know that, but I know both of their works. But that works. But yeah, we talk about that, and I felt kind of dumb because I didn't know that they were related. Anyway, have a great week. Buy a shirt. Enjoy.
I'm so honored to be asked to do this. There was a phrase from a show years ago that said, "I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now." And at the age that I am, I truly have come to believe that I wouldn't take anything for the journey that I have been on. I came into theater through the back door, and I have always been a late bloomer. And so I didn't get the theater bug in high school, if you will. My whole high school career was spent in choir. And I know that I enjoyed watching plays, but was never really introduced to it. And so I went off to college and graduated and came back to Houston and found out that I was not ready to teach school because the state of Texas required one to have 2 teaching fields. I came back from Washington, D.C. with 1 teaching field, which was English language arts, and a minor in education, because in the District of Columbia, you had to minor in education. Okay, so I was most unprepared to begin my teaching career. And so I found myself going to a university and saying to someone, "Well, what do I do now?" And they said, "You go back to school." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And so I said, they said, "Well, what do you want to choose?" I said, "I have no idea." And so this guy put this piece of paper in front of me, and I leaned over this desk, and I took my finger, and I ran my finger down the list of teaching fields. And then when I got to theater, I said, "Ooh, I like drama. I've always liked going to plays. Maybe I'll pick that." And that day was when my journey began. Step 2, I found myself at the University of Houston sitting in Cecil Pickett's class. And he stood there and said, "If you are a theater education major, this class is not for you. This class is for true theater majors, those who aspire to become actors, performers." And I thought, this must be something really special. So I kept my mouth shut and sat eagerly, wanting to know more about this thing that these people were sitting on the edges of their seats about to learn. And the more I stayed, the more I fell in love. And then as I graduated and decided this theater thing is something that really shakes me up. Maybe this is where I should have been all my life, but found out about it so very late. Fast forward to education. I met the likes of Celie Turner, who was able to push his soul into me and showed me that I had potential. And I really didn't understand the kind of potential that I had. Then I got more involved and decided, you know what, I'm going to go to UCLA. Maybe I can really make something of this theater thing. So I went to UCLA, worked on my MFA, and thought, I'm home. This is where I'm meant to be. Came back to Houston and started teaching. Was at a school where there were not a lot of people who knew a lot about theater. There was a program, but it wasn't it wasn't the kind of program that I aspired to have. So I met a guy named Bill Morton, my first play, my first UIL play, and he looked at me after my show went up and he said, "That was very good. You're new?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "That was excellent." And I said, "Okay, maybe I'm pretty good at this." Then I went and met Terry Ogden, who was also an inspiration for me because he looked at me and said, "Something, something good here." And I said, "Well, we don't have a lot of resources at my school, but I have eager children." So he decided that he would give me a whole unit set. We took an old truck and went to San Jac and loaded it back to my school, and there the magic began to happen. And each year my kids got stronger, and we became, we found each other. I found the love for my children. I found the love for the art. And I decided that someday I would go to state. And that my whole career was what I worked on. I wanted to make my children successful. I went to state and I said, this is magnificent. I want to be there. And every year I got closer and closer. And so that's how my magical journey began, through the back door, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Wow. So, a few questions for you. You are, I now I don't know how to word this as a question necessarily, but you are a highly respected leader in at least Texas theater. I'm assuming in other places too, and a lot of people. There's a lot of value in you, in your name. Do you know that? Like, is that something you feel? Is that something you humbly feel? I know that it's not something you would say about you. But do you feel that your name holds a lot of
I can
merit?
put it like, I don't necessarily feel it or spend a lot of time thinking about it
Sure.
from the adults, but with the children, that's where there is clarity for me, because when I stand in front of them, there's this energy that is shared between children that I'm training or children that I'm as a clinician or adjudicating, and they say things to me like, "Oh, it's clear," or "I get it," or whatever, and then it has power and strength in me. I really, I listen to the adults. When I'm not there for the adults, I'm there for the children. I hope that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's because I can't spend a lot of time saying, "Oh, they really appreciate me or they respect me," or whatever. That gives me ego, and every time in my life I've ever had a huge ego, it's like something came along and said, "Mm-mm."
Yeah.
And I got put back in my humble place.
Yeah. Yeah, you are very grounded. Have you had any former students go into the theater education business and world, and then adjudicate for them at any point?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So the reason
Yes, I did. I did very, very recently, within the last few weeks. Um, yes.
Yes.
Typically, I try not to do that, but it's a big state,
Yeah.
and
Obviously.
I've
Yeah.
touched so many kids. I've been retired for a long time. I worked 36 years in education. and no, I'll never tell you my age.
Well,
Um,
we know it's at least 36.
I love you for that. I love you for that. Um, so it's a struggle, but these are kids. No, they're not kids. They're adults. These are people that I groomed,
Yeah.
and I groomed them the hard way, if you will. Now I can be sweet and kind and soft and gentle and motherly.
Yeah.
But when I started, I had to have power. I had to push into them this warrior mentality. And let me tell you, I remember one time, and this is a perfect example. This will explain it very well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know Adonia Placette, who was at Lamar. Anyway, I was so enamored by this woman because the first time she ever adjudicated my kids and me, it was the toughest tough love it was ruthless, but it was beautiful because of the fact that she did not sugarcoat one thing, nothing. We walked out of there knowing what we needed to do. And from that moment on, I said, this is what I'm going to give my children. In other words, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to pet them. I'm going to show them what the world is like, how you must be ready, and it's a hard world out there, and we must be ready. And Adonia taught me that, and so that's what I gave my kids. And so now, when I adjudicate them, it has to be. Well, they know who I am, and they know I'm not going to give them anything. I'm going to tell them. I'm not going to be ugly. No, please don't think that I would hurt a child. I would not, could not ever do that knowingly. I would never.
Yeah.
But I think people appreciate you telling them what you see, and we do the educational process a disservice if we sit there and go, oh, this was so wonderful, and that was so wonderful, and this was so wonderful. Now, I compliment. I must compliment. I must praise kids because we have to empower them. We have to lift them. But then we have to come and tell them how to improve. And so that's it. And if I don't do that, then I don't have a reason to be there.
Right. So do you, and this is not I know adjudicators, are trained to be equitable and even playing field type thing. And this is not really outside of that realm, but do you find yourself, when you are giving a former student a critique, talking to them, who is now in the place of, in the role of a director, do you find yourself talking to them back a little bit as teacher student, or do you try to put them into the shoes of every other director that you would ever talk to in that role as an adjudicator giving feedback?
I have to talk to them as any other adjudicator. I cannot talk to them as teacher student. They would not tolerate that. In other words, because I'm not their teacher anymore, and I think they would be insulted if I did.
Right. Okay.
It has to be the same across the board. I communicate with them in the same way that I communicate with any other director. Period.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. Am I correct? Did you go to Wheatley?
I did.
Okay. So you started here. I mean, you were, I don't know if you started here, but you were sort of formidable years in Houston.
Yes, my mother was a teacher. My mother was a teacher at the high school where I went to school. There was a wonderful theater department at the high school. There was, but it was like, how do I put this? They were almost unapproachable. Those group of kids. It's like I was in a completely different world from them. They would perform at school. They had reputations.
Sure.
But it was like a completely different. My mother was the volleyball coach.
Okay.
And so I was in the gym every day after school with her. However, I sucked at all forms of athletics. So it wasn't that I was in there, participating. I was just sitting there watching, or sometimes I go hang out in an art class, but I was never around the theater people. I just knew what I enjoyed.
That's funny. So you were not an athlete?
Oh no, I sucked. I was an embarrassment for. He would just say, "Please go sit on the bench." And I said, "Okay."
Yeah, well, I get that. That's funny. I feel that very much when in regards to my relationship with my own father. So, so you geographically though, so you've been kind of a United States traveler, because you mentioned you you didn't say Howard, but you said Washington D.C. So
Yeah, it was Howard.
Yeah, and then
at Howard, one of my roommates was a theater major, and so something should have hit me in the head and said,
yeah,
this is it for you." But it's like I said, it's a late bloomer. So one day, my friend said, "Come go to the theater with me. Come go to see one of the plays." And I said, "Oh, okay." So we go to see this play entitled "A Moon on a Rainbow Shawl." And who was the lead actor in Moon on a Rainbow Shawl? Felicia Richard.
wow.
The Felicia Richard. I fell so in love with that play and that performance. My friend in the dorm snuck me into the back door of the theater one solid week. I saw it every night after the first night. I only paid the first night, okay?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to get your money's worth. So was she somebody at that point, or was she just was she a student?
She was a college student. She was a senior.
Wow.
And then her sister was in either one class or two classes behind her. She was a dance major. She was not an actor at Howard, but both of them were students at Howard.
And did you know her? Like, she's from Houston too. So
yes, I met. I did not meet Felicia.
Okay.
I met Debbie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I don't know I don't know Debbie, but I definitely know Felicia. So
well, if you watch
not Debbie Allen. Oh, Debbie Allen. Oh, that's her sister. Oh, I just looked it up. Oh, I know Debbie Allen. Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Because I'm an idiot and I'm looking for Rashad. So, but that's her name she got when she married Ahmad Rashad. So
yeah, and Debbie and Allen is their family name, because her father was a dentist in Houston, and so was my father, a dentist, and so all the the dentists their families kind of knew each other, so I knew the father.
Oh boy, you just opened up Pandora's box with questions, but I'll try to stay away from the dental questions. But I don't know if I ever knew that they were related. That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well that's good to know. I think both that. Well, I'll get off of that. We don't. This isn't a podcast about Felicia and Debbie Allen. So,
okay.
but that's funny. So your father was a dentist.
And Mom was a teacher.
Yeah, was there pressure from your family to follow in medical world, or I mean, your mom was a teacher, so was there pressure to be in education? Was there pressure from either side to do one or the other, or no?
Okay, let me explain it like this. I was
Okay.
the only child.
Yeah.
When I was about 10, I'm going to push it for 10. When I was 10, I knew the Howard University school song. I knew the sorority hymn. My mother decided where I was going to go to college. I only applied to one university, and that was Howard because she had graduated from there, and so had my uncle in dentistry. And so my whole path was planned. I didn't get a choice, and I often wondered years later what would have happened if Howard had told me no, because you know everything was plotted and planned, and so I was going to go into education, and I was going to finish from Howard, and I was going to pledge the sorority. I didn't, it wasn't that I fought it because that's what she said, and that was the greatest thing in the world because she said it, and that's what I did.
Wow. Do you still hold on to, because I'm good friends with Nancy Lynch and Destiny. I feel like Destiny now is at the level where you just say Destiny and everybody knows who you're talking about. But
Absolutely.
but they have a very healthy rivalry because one is Southern and one is Grambling. Uh, do you still hold on to any sort of like pride about your HBCU, like the
Oh,
Howard connection?
um, so freaking. I was in D.C. Not long ago. I will be there in May for the
Okay.
Howard homecoming. No, not homecoming, for the graduation, and it will also be. I will meet some of my, fellow Howardites
Right.
because this is a pivotal year for us. And so every chance I get, last year I was at Howard's homecoming. Oh yes. Oh, and I mean, of course, this is Howard University was referred to as the Mecca,
Yeah.
and so Vice President Kamala Harris
Yeah.
helped the world to understand what Howard was all about.
Yeah. That's yeah, that's cool. I mean, I guess I have some allegiance to the University of Houston, but the way you just described about practically flying 3 hours to go to certain events and things, annually or a couple times a year, it's hard to find, these days. So good for you.
Yeah, I did my 2 years of post baccalaureate study at the University of Houston because I told you Cecil
Yeah.
Pickett. You probably know of him,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and Dr. Berger.
Yep.
At University of Houston, you were either a Pickett person or you were a Berger person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that was an issue, but it was, and I was the Pickett person.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. I wasn't there when he was there. I was there when Dr. Berger was there, but yeah. Yeah.
And Dr. Berger was very important to me as well because he didn't know me while I was in school. I'll say that first. However, there was an organization called the English Speaking Union. I don't know if they still do their competition, but at the end of every year, in the spring, the ESU would have the Shakespeare contest, and so each high school in the city of Houston could bring one student to compete at the English Speaking Union's competition. So that was a big thing years ago, and so we would train our kids, and after a while, my kids weren't winning, and so I said, we got to figure out what to do. So what I decided was I would hold a competition at my school. And I talked to the principal, and I said, what I need to do is I need to have an assembly. I need everybody who can get in this assembly. And I said, we're going to hold a school Shakespeare competition, and we will let a panel of teachers choose the winner to go to the University of Houston. That worked for a while, and then I got with some other theater teachers, and we would hold our own little pre-competition to get ready for the big competition at University of Houston. So I would talk to Dr. Berger, and I said, Dr. Berger, I told him what I wanted to do. He was most excited. So he said, you know what? You get this competition together. I'm going to come to your school and judge your competition. I said, cool beans, yay. So we would do that. And then I'd get my kids ready after our competition. And Freddie Buckner came, and Ezekiel Morgan brought his kids at one point. And so I was fortunate enough to, really train some strong kids. And on 2 separate occasions, I had a kid to win, and we flew to New York to compete in the national competition. It was wonderful.
You've lived a fun life. I'm just sitting here smiling, just listening to you, and I'm not even done with you. So it's just you could probably write a book, but I'm not going to encourage that because I don't know if you want to spend that kind of time. But so then you go to the East or the sorry, go ahead.
You know what? I have some, and I do, and I always laugh with some of my kids and say, if I wrote a book, this would be one of those stories.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful stories, and I'm going to make it as quick as I can because I don't know how much time you have. But
no, I got all the time in the world for you.
Was one of the most meaningful stories of my whole career. So I had this group of kids, and we had worked. Oh my gosh, we had worked. And so we were almost at the end of our journey. And I don't know if you're religious, but if you are religious, you will understand this even more powerfully than I tell it.
Okay.
But so it was. We had advanced from district to area, and the day we were leaving, my kids got sick. No, they got sick the night before. They were all coming down with strep throat, and because one person had it, and it was spreading like wildfire, and somebody had and so I was in a mega panic, and so I called a meeting that we were getting ready to go to we were going to compete at HSTVA. I had one kid whose temp was 104. And I can't even tell you how many of them were sick, but just, many of them were sick. And so I was taking them down to the nurse's office and sitting there, and I'm like, what should I do? What should I do? Okay, so I said to one girl, I said, sweetheart, I said, I got to call your mother and tell her, that you got a temp. And so she said, Mr. Dupree, she said, please don't do that. She said, because if she finds out, I won't be able to compete, and I must compete. So I sat in front of the nurse, and I said, talk to me. I said, tell me what to do. And she said, Dupree, she knows her body. If she says she can do this, she can do it. I said, okay. So I loaded all the kids. I had one parent to go. I had some parents who would travel with us all the time. And so we were giving them tea with vitamin C, and I was giving them everything. I was pumping them up with all kinds of stuff. And I used to have this stuff I would call love tea. And I think some of them were trying to, pretend that they were sick so I could make them this tea. But it was just tea with orange juice and all kinds of different juices in it or whatever. And I was pumping it with this love tea. Okay, so we get to HSTVA, and we started just before we got ready to go on stage. We said, we're going to pray. And we started praying. And then somebody started singing. And so somebody knocked on the door and said, Mr. Dupree, you need to go to your director's meeting. I said, okay. I left the other director, and then they were just on their knees, just singing and praying and all of this. So I went to the director's meeting. I was sweating bullets because I was a nervous wreck. I was stressed to the max. And I walked back in the room after the director's meeting, and I went to the kid that was the sickest, and I said, Joy, I said, I figured out what I'm going to do with you. I said, I'm going to let so-and-so take your lines, and she said, no, ma'am. She said, we have prayed, and I have been healed. I said, what? She said, I have been healed. She said, you just watch and see. Those kids got on that stage, and this was the show where we got on stage, and the show opens with a tableau, and so several of the boys had the girls hoisted in the air. There was the smoke going, but the music never came on.
Mm-hmm.
And they held them up in the air for I don't know how long, and the audience was like, oh, because there was no music, and the kids would not break from the freeze. So several of the actors were just in the air. And then Bob Singleton comes running down and says, I'm going to go fix it. I'm going to go fix it. And I was running out of the theater, and then house lights came up and the curtains closed. And I said, you got to help my kids. You got to help my kids. And he said, yes. But look at the concentration of your kids. Look at that concentration. I said, I don't care about concentration. Fix this. And he fixed it. Those kids won awards. It was so amazing how they went from sicker than sick to one saying that I've been healed and performed flawlessly. It was the most magical moment of my career.
Do you remember what year that was? If you don't mind me asking.
I have to ask my daughter that.
Okay. Okay. I only ask because I went to PVA and only and I've said this on this podcast 100 times now, but I only ever hosted one act play. We never competed, and so I'm just wondering if I was around for that. Now I don't remember being in the Denny Theater during something like that happening, but I might have heard that story from Bob before or something like that. But that's yeah. I mean, those are the things that's the thing that kids don't understand is that stuff lives with us just as much as it lives with them.
Mm-hmm.
So
it does.
Yep.
It does. If they were on this phone call, they would chime in with a lot of pride and even some with tears because it was just a teary day. Mm-hmm. It really, I mean, and they were crying. They were making so much noise in that dressing room. I know people were standing outside going, "What in the heck are they doing in there?" But they were just singing and praying and praying and singing, and then they got up and performed like nothing was wrong.
Yep. I feel that. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, I'm going to get you out of here on this question. It may be a hard question.
Okay.
But I want you to speak about the Black Theater Educator Caucus and what BTEC kind of represents and means to you. And I was raised, and I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast before, but I was raised by a woman named Esther Smith, who I just called on Thanksgiving morning. And she is a black woman in her late 80s. And she's another mom to me, if not more than my mom. I mean, she means the absolute world to me. And one of the things that I've always I've sort of been very vocal about is how Esther raised me, and it was a different culture, and I'm a white Jewish man, being raised by a Christian black woman in a time that I don't want to say that was weird, but it was not normal, right? It wasn't something you see every day, right? Yeah, unusual. And so I'll speak very candidly. I have this weird connection. My heart gets very warm when I am around just a very culturally diverse, and it doesn't have to be black. It's just everything. Um, I find a lot of warmth in it. It sounds so stupid and kind of cheesy, but it's just there's some. What's that?
It doesn't sound cheesy.
Well, it's yeah, but it's a comfort level, that I have, and I know that B Tech because I went to a B Tech event. I think it was at Chewy's of all places, but and there's just this. I don't want to say it's a cult, but there's definitely a strong community with Texas theater educators, but then there's even this stronger community with black Texas and maybe not just Texas, but theater educators. And I can't tell you, and I've never said this to Joy or Destiny or anybody, that like how much it meant to me to be kind of just accepted and included in that. And so I can go on for hours talking about what it means to me, but this isn't about me. But I want you to kind of elaborate and talk about what B Tech means to you.
That's priceless. Um, B-Tech is Celie Turner. Celie Turner was a role model and a force in our lives that defies description. And she decided that this organization, there should be an organization developed that addressed the gap with children of color, and that this organization should work toward building capacity, if you will. I know that term has been used so much, but I think it speaks to exactly what the need was, and that if B-Tech was designed for any teacher of color or not of color who had to work with children of color. And if that child was lacking in information or, lacking in experience in theater, then that teacher, we would do trainings to teach those teachers how to reach children of color. And it was the brainchild of Celie Turner. And so we were there even when the whole equity and diversity movement really came into fruition. But there is so much more work to be done. I'll have to say that. because when people get into their seasons, they get tunnel vision with regards to, I got to get my show ready. But how and I know I'm rambling, but it's
No.
like I have so many ideas circling in my head, so you're trying to be patient with me.
I am.
But for example, there were times when we would meet at the Ensemble Theater on once a month, and so the kinds of things that we would do would be, we would say, if you're a new theater teacher and you are struggling, then you pick a mentor from this room, and during the course of the school year, you make a phone call. Because I was Joy's mentor years ago. Or if you struggle with tech, and those people who were strong in tech, then they would go to your school and say, "This is how you do this, that, and the other." And so that's the whole idea: is to bridge the gap and help people to build capacity and do it with a sense of camaraderie and love. And that to me is, everybody who is signed on to BTech understands the mission.
Thank you. I lied to you. I want you to say one more thing.
Okay.
You had as you said, 36-year career.
Well, actually, I bought that last year. It was 35, but
okay.
Yeah, after they said you can buy this last one, and I bought it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we won't tell anybody.
Okay.
But you could argue that your career hasn't ended. You just went from one chapter to the next. But what is something that you wanted to make sure that your students over those years, what is one thing you wanted to make sure those students left with when they were done with your class, with Ms. Dupree's class, with your training, your life coach, you could put all different types of titles on it, but what is the thing you wanted to make sure they left you with?
I would always preach the idea that theater is a dress rehearsal for life. And in life, you're going to work at the task. Occasionally, if you're really, really fortunate, you will succeed at that task. More often than not, you will not succeed at that task. But just like everything else in theater, you have, when you get knocked down, when you're not as successful as you aspire to be, then you get right back up and you keep going. In other words, nobody can be in a play and the pylon falls down in the middle of the play. You can't stop the play and go, "Ooh, I messed that up." You must keep going. The play is the thing. The play must work. The show must go on. And just in life, even though you fall, even though you fail, even though you let yourself down or you may let others down, life must go on. So you get back up, pick up that pylon, dust off your costume, and fire it up and keep going. And that's it.
Minor